Hello YouTube, welcome back to my garage. It's time for another project on the 2000 H1. So this week's project, decided to get started, is right here on the table. We're going to be replacing all of the door glass. All four pieces are right here. I've got four brand new high torque window regulators. I mean, the ones that are in the truck work fine, but they're 25 years old. And I just like replacing stuff. So got all the new belt line seals here that go up in the upper door track. This is the setting tape. This is required to install these brackets onto the bottom of this glass. Little secret, these came out of a VW Jetta. I mean, they're about $8 a piece. If you go to the Hummer parts guys, these things are upwards around $100 a piece. So do the math on that. So I'm going to show you how to use this tape and setting that glass down inside that track. So while I'm in the process of replacing all the windows, I am going to be redoing the door panels. So I'm going to get rid of the kangaroo pouches. They're just kind of old and kind of dated, and they don't look so good anymore. And then I'm going to have these reupholstered from this seam down. I'm going to do black leather on this lower half right here. That's going to match the leather that's on here. And I also have some new door handles coming from the Predator guys. They should be here tomorrow. But I did a video a long time ago on how to repair these handles when they start to fall apart. And it worked out really well. I mean, it was years ago, and this thing is still functioning perfectly. But it's time to get rid of these with the new leather on here and the new stitching. I think something to dress that up a little bit better, look a little nicer. Anyway, that's as much as I know for right now. But we're going to start on getting all these door panels off. I will more than likely start on the back door, maybe do that one first, and we'll get set up. We'll get all the door panels off, and we'll get going on replacing some glass. All right, it's time to start taking this door apart and getting this regulator out and getting the glass out. So changing the regulators on these is pretty simple. Getting the glass out afterwards is a little bit more involved. So what we're going to end up doing is, first thing is we're going to get this handle out of the way. This rod right here just kind of gets in the way of everything you want to do. It's really simple. You just unclip that little keeper right there, and then just slide the rod out and the handle along with it. Now you got to pay attention, because on this side of the regulator the rod goes behind, but on this part right here the rod goes on the front side of it. So be careful when you're fishing it out of there that you put it back. Take note of which way it went in so you can get it back in the same way. And then the regulator, you just basically take this bracket off here, take this screw out, these two right here. Gotta love the zip ties, so make note there's a zip tie right there, and then you've got two screws here and two screws there. And you also want to lower your glass down so that this little slot right here, where is it? The little slot right here exposes the two screws that hold the glass track to the regulator. So we're going to take that off first, and then we're going to run the window all the way up. And when you run the window up, it's kind of nice to have something like, if you have an old suction cup, you got to have something to hold the glass up while you're doing all this other work in here. So you could put a suction cup down at the bottom on the outside, and when you get the glass up, that will keep it from falling back down. You can put tape up and over the top. A lot of people just use painter's tape or something to go up over the top. But you're going to be moving the glass quite a bit, and having something like an old GPS or a camera suction cup for the glass, this helps out. So here we've got the new glass, we've got the new track. We're going to do an interior door handle because the old ones are kind of rusty. New belt line seals, and the new regulator. Now the new regulator comes with a different kind of pigtail. We're going to get into that later. But anyway, that's about all the new parts that are going in. I got new seals. These seals have to come out for the glass to come out, and so do the belt line strips. They have to come out. I have two new ones going on the left side of the vehicle. I didn't want to get all four of them. Not yet. These are in pretty good shape. So I thought I'd do two on the other side, but they're expensive. They're like $260 a piece. So we'll do that slowly. But anyway, we're going to sit up here and we're going to start taking a couple parts out and we'll see how that goes. So get this set up right here. So getting this handle out is pretty easy. You just lower this, you just take this little clip out right here. All you gotta do is bend it down. You don't need to take it out all the way. That rod just comes right out the back. And then you can just fish this out of here. And now you can get that out of the way. Okay, next we're gonna take these two screws out right here, and we're gonna run the glass all the way to the top. So somewhere in here. So this is kind of a long and lengthy process. I don't think I'm going to videotape the whole thing. Now when you get this last screw out, the glass is going to want to fall. So you want to be careful with that. And then you take your trusty little suction cup, run the glass up all the way. And you can use that suction cup to hold the glass in place, pretty close to the top. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to take out these two, this bracket, and we're going to cut this zip tie. And I'll come back once I get those all out of there. Okay, once you get all the screws loose, I forgot to mention there's one down here in the bottom also, but that one and the bracket's gone, and the two over here are gone. Now this thing just kind of folds and rotates around. Get up and get the connector off of it. I forgot about that. So you can just unplug this little connector right here. That's all it takes, just to slide that thing out. And now you can rotate this thing up. Just watch the wires and the brackets. And there's a tube right here that goes down inside the bottom of the door. This is where the extra spring goes when your track moves down out of the way. And that just comes up like this, and the regulator just kind of slides out. And there it is. It literally takes like 5 minutes to get the regulator out. The window is a little more difficult. So now what we're going to do is we need to remove the tracks that are inside here. There's a screw here, and then there's a screw here, and there's two more on the other side, here and here. This felt channel right here goes all the way down to the bottom, but these two sections of track come out, and they have to come out first. So we're going to take these two out, and then we're going to drop the glass back down to the bottom once they're gone, and then we're going to fish out the belt line seals and this weather stripping, and then hopefully the glass comes out. We'll be back in a second. All right, once you got those 4 screws out, these tracks right here will just kind of fall out. And look at this, some genius thought that putting white lithium grease in this track was going to help the window slide. That's kind of disgusting. But anyway, this is the track that comes out. There's a piece of track that comes down inside here and stops. It actually fits inside this track here. You can see where there's a recess up inside here where that other track mates up. So we get this one out, and the other one's the same way. You just kind of reach in there and pull it off. It comes out of the felt strip. And then there's what the other one looks like, left and right. They're a little bit different, so one's shorter, one's longer. So make sure you keep them in the right position. So now we can drop this glass all the way to the bottom, and we can pull this suction cup back off. And we can drop this glass all the way down inside. And now we're going to get the belt line strips off. So by these, once you get one side started, it's actually pretty easy. You just push it down out of that track, and once it starts, they lift right out. And that's it for the belt line seals. And now, this one's a little more tricky. So this actually just pulls out, I mean, it's pretty simple. We're gonna have to clean this whole thing, but there's a spot inside here where the track picks up again. You can see this. You can see this spot right here where it kind of flares out. Well, that gets hung up in this track when you go to pull it out. So you have to reach in there and try to collapse this track to get it out, and without damaging it if you're going to reuse it. We're going to have to clean this one. So we'll see if we can get this out real quick here. You have to kind of squeeze that together and then it comes out. This one over here, it's going to be a little bit more difficult because there's a lot less room in there to work. But you can see how it flares. This part right here, these little tabs right here want to hook on the inside of this track when you get it out. And then this side over here, you can see how it's hung up. So we're going to try to work that out of there, get this track hung up here so it holds up, and then I'm going to have to work on that for a little bit. Sometimes you have to get down inside here with something. That last one I had to do with a couple small putty knives to get it to free up. And I'll be back in a second when I get that out of there. All right, I had to get a couple of putty knives on either side of that track to kind of collapse that flap to the inside. But once I got it up this high, I can pull the putty knives out. And now that track will come out the rest of the way. And this is kind of gross. I don't know what genius moron thought that white lithium grease was going to be the answer. Usually you just clean those tracks, get them nice and dry, and you don't have a problem with them. So now I'm going to show you how to get the glass out of the door. Okay, to get this glass out, it has to rotate 90 degrees inside the door, and then it lifts out through the channel. Now, if for some reason I was putting this glass back in, I would want to protect it from getting scratched, so I would put some painter's tape inside here and roll it over this ledge. I mean, it's all aluminum in here, but you can still, there's a chance you could scratch the glass. But so let's get this thing rotated up and get it out of here. And just like that, it lifts out. That's kind of disgusting. So you can see the old window film on here, and there's grease just smudged up all over this thing on both sides. So let me lay it next to the new one. We'll see the contrast and difference. All right, so here's the old glass that we just took out, and then here's the new glass. It's all tinted. It's going to go back in, and then we're going to put this new track onto here. We're going to do that a little bit later, but for right now, I need to stop and clean and wipe out all this stuff in here. Try to get all the dirt out of this track. And we need to clean that window strip right there, and that's going to take a little while to get all that slime off of there. So we'll come back when we're set up and ready to put this new track on the glass. I'll show you a couple tricks for that. All right, so before we can put this track on the new glass, we need to get a reference of where it is on the old glass. So as you can see, these aren't quite, I mean, the holes lined up perfectly, but they're just not, they're about an inch shy on either side, so I can't really get a reference of measuring where this thing is. It's critical where this goes. You have to duplicate what came off the old glass. So what I did is I basically just lined this, took a straight edge, and I lined this glass up on the edge of the table here. And then I measured over to the center line of that hole, and I made a mark, and it's about 12¼ inches. So now I have a reference point of how far this hole is from the edge of the glass, and we're going to use that to put the track onto the new window. All right, I got the new glass lined up at the edge of the table, and I have this bracket positioned right where that mark is from the old one. So that's my reference point, is getting that screw hole lined up with that mark. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple pieces of tape right on the edge of where this track needs to be, without bumping it or moving it. And once we get that done, we can move this out of the way because we don't need that and we don't need this. So now we're going to get set up to put that track onto that glass. Okay, we're ready to install this track. So this is glass setting tape. It comes on a roll, looks kind of like that. It's cheap, it's like maybe 15 bucks. And this is the part number. This is the 1/16 inch thick. You could buy this thing in multiple sizes. So PKF 216-112. So that works out really well. So also you want to make sure you get this track the correct way. So this is the inside of the glass here. You want to use the inside here and have the nut plates need to be on the back side. So what we're going to do is we're going to stand this up and we're going to wrap this halfway around the glass, and then we're going to use a rubber mallet and we're going to drive this on. But this is real kind of tacky, grippy, so you're going to make it wet with kerosene. This is just household fuel kerosene. You could buy it at Home Depot, super cheap, but you need this to make this rubber really slippery so this thing will drop on. And now that we have the tape on here, we can guide this, we can get it right where it needs to be between that tape. And I cut this thing a little bit long because you could trim it off with a razor blade when it's all done. That way you make sure you've got 100% coverage inside the track. So it gets messy with the kerosene and everything. It's gonna get all over the glass, and then you clean it up afterwards, no big deal. So let me get set up, and let's see if I can get this camera up here, just kind of somewhere. Hopefully you guys will be able to see this. I don't know. So that's going to go up like that, and it'll come up a little higher. Come over a little bit. Okay, so we got the kerosene, we got the rag, we got the mallet. We're going to get this rubber, and it doesn't matter, both sides are the same. And you just kind of bend it over. You can overhang that tape a little bit. And if you get this thing hammered on here and it's not absolutely perfect, you have a little bit of time to stand it up on end and tap it into the direction that you need to go. So it's not exactly a one-shot deal. But get a bunch of kerosene on a rag, make this thing really wet. Like I said, it's going to get messy. It's going to leave black marks everywhere. And then once you get that on there, line it up with your tape marks. This is intimidating, but it's not that big a deal. Stuff goes everywhere. Comes back up. And there it is. It's down, but I'm a little bit to the left, so I'm going to stand it up like this, and I'm just going to knock it down. You have a little bit of time to line it up with your tape. That looks pretty good. And just for fun, drive it home one more time, and that's it. That's all there is to it. Your track is on. So once that kerosene evaporates out of there, you're good to go. I mean, that thing was glued on there and it will never come out. So anyway, now I'm going to peel the tape off. I'm going to get a razor blade and trim this on both sides. Trim this way, not this way. You go that way and slip, you'll scratch your glass. So trim away from it. Get all that cleaned up. Maybe get the residual kerosene and rubber off of there, and we'll be ready to install the window. Now we're ready to set that glass back down in there, and as I mentioned earlier, just put a little bit of tape up here over the top to protect the glass so it doesn't get scratched going in. I know it's just aluminum, but you can still have a burr or sharp edge or something there, and the last thing you need is a scratch in your new glass. So you're going to put it back in the same way it came out, and you drop it down in there and you rotate it down, and you set it in the, carefully set it at the bottom of the door. So in you go, and once you're down in there, you can slowly rotate it into position. And that's that's all there is to it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pull this tape off, and then we're going to put the door seal back in. And you kind of have to force the door seal down between the glass, and it's just going to flop around to the bottom because you don't have the lower tracks in yet. Those go in later. And then once you put the door seal in and you go down in there, then we can put the new belt line seals on, and the rest of it is just putting the regulator back in and getting it all adjusted. So I'll be back in a second. Okay, we're going to drop this seal back in. So if you notice, there's a longer leg on the one side. So if you try to stand this up, the left side's a lot longer than the right side. So on the back doors, the long side goes to the left. On the front doors, it goes around the other way, and the long side goes on the outside of the door. So that's because the glass is also rotated differently. It takes the same glass front and rear, but the panels are reversed. And it's just why they did that, I don't know. But anyway, so now you have to force, this is that piece that goes down inside and goes into the lower track, but you have to force this past the window because the window is just flopping around in there, so you kind of have to line it up, and you have to force this down past the glass, and then you have to force the other side down past the glass and get it in there and get it all in position. And then once that's done, we can either put the belt line seals on or we can put the lower tracks on. I don't think it matters. So let me work this down in there and we'll be back. All right, that actually slid down in there pretty good. So this is actually the top of it, but you're gonna have to cram this down inside because you have to reveal this on the bottom side a little bit so you can get this back up inside there. So once you push all that up in there, now you can get these little flaps right here to come up, and they go on the outside of the door. So you do that on both sides, and just kind of work that up like that, and do the outside one, work it up like that. Now you can get this thing back in the track where it needs to go, and then we'll get this kind of position in here, and then we'll do the belt line seals. The belt line seals are relatively easy. They just kind of snap down over the glass. They fit in between these seals here, and you can feel them lock into place. That is all it takes right there. And then the little flapper on this side goes to the inside. Put that in. And you could feel it drop in and hook around. So once that's done, there's your new belt line seals. Now what you can go ahead and do is you can get your little suction cup, and you can lift your glass back up inside the channel. You go ahead and put your suction cup back on to hold your glass from falling down. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get these guys right here. I got to clean them up a little bit, but these are going to go back inside. Like I said, you have to fish them. Your seal just kind of flopping around in there, so you're going to go in and you're going to fish up behind it, go all the way up through, and then get your screws started. And then comes the fun process of getting everything lined up. So we will come back shortly. All right, so the tracks are in. I left them a little bit loose because you're going to need to be able to adjust them. This side's back in. You make sure the rubber's back in the track on both sides where it's supposed to go. Make sure the little flaps are on the outside of the track downside here, and there's one in the back. So once you got all that put back in, and then we'll double check this one over here. Yep, feels good. Feels good all the way down. And so that's all there is for that. So now we're going to put the regulator back in the same way. It's going to go through the door this way, and then you make sure this black tube, and let's see if we can get a little bit of view here. Make sure this black tube right here gets fished down inside this hole, which goes down into the bottom of the door. That's where that extra spring goes that when the window goes up. So you start off this way. Put her in this side, and then once you got that in there, feeding that tube down in there. And it will want to get hung up on everything, so. Okay, that looks pretty good. I gotta fish that wire out from underneath there and make sure that thing doesn't get pinched. But anyway, that's it. Now I'm gonna get all the screws back in, get them started, and then we're gonna lower the window, reattach it to the track, and then we'll get everything fine-tuned and adjusted. Okay, the regulator is all reinstalled. This bracket right here, these 3 screws are tight. This bottom one is tight, but I left these loose, I left these loose, and I left these up here loose. So, because this is gonna have to adjust. So the bolts that come with this Volkswagen track, as I mentioned earlier, this is out of a VW Jetta, and they're like $8 versus $100 for the from the supplier guys for the OEM part, but it's almost the same track. So the bolts that come with it are metric. They're M6s and they're too long. You have to cut these off or find some shorter ones, because if you leave them long, they're gonna hit this little bar down here when the window goes down. So they just hang out a little bit too far out the back. So now I gotta run this window up and down a whole bunch of times till I'm satisfied with the adjustment. So instead of turning on my ignition key and leaving it on, I had some parts laying around and I made this dumb little button box here. Let's just call it a button box. So there's a wire that connects to the pigtail right there, and this will give me window up and window down. And this end right here will just go into my cigarette lighter, so it's hot all the time. So now I can just take my time and get this thing adjusted without having the ignition on or the accessory position on and running the battery down and everything else. So, because this is kind of tedious right here, so you do it a whole bunch of times until you get happy with it. And once you're happy with it, you go ahead and lock it all down. The key is when this window goes up, make sure it is absolutely parallel with the top of your window track here. Try to get a best guess here, but you don't want it off to one side. You want it be able to shift it back and forth until you get a perfect flat line across the top there. So let me get this thing powered up and run it up down a couple times, and we'll check it out. All right, with everything back together and the button box hooked up to the pigtail on the window, so we can see it goes down nice and smooth, goes back up, and without the engine running, it's always gonna go slow. So that goes back up in there real nice. So the last thing to do now, oh, and don't forget to adjust and tighten these up too, this one and this one. Now before I took it apart, I just put a Sharpie mark on here that kind of tells me which side of the slot the screw's leaning towards. Like this one was right side, this one right here kind of leaning to the left. So I just put a little mark on there. And this one right here was kind of in the middle, so I just put M on it. They kind of go back in the same place for the most part. So that's about it for this thing. Now the only thing we're going to do is we're going to connect this pigtail to this wire. So the way they set it up is they made it so you could just plug this thing in, and yellow for yellow, red for red. They were made just, you know, just to go right into that connector, and then it doesn't grip real tight. I mean, I don't know. I don't like that, man. Just having that thing in there. I mean, you can do it like that, and you can tape the shit out of it, but it pulls out too easy, and you don't want it to vibrate out, because then you got to take your door apart again. But I'm going to take this connector off. I'm going to cut these wires, and they're going to get soldered and heat shrunk together. So I don't use crimp connectors on anything if I don't have to. So everything is soldered, everything gets heat shrink, and that way you never have to worry about it again. So we'll get that thing buttoned up, and then that'll call it good for this door. So I do a lot of soldering. So a long time ago I made this little helping hand stand here. It's got a heavy piece of steel in the bottom for weight, holds my roll of solder, and then these little flexi arms here will just hold the wires and where I can get them all soldered in. And don't forget to put your heat shrink on before you start, or else you get to take it apart again. All right, so got everything soldered back together. So it's looking real nice. Put the heat shrink on. And this right here, this little DeWalt 20 volt heat gun, pretty impressive. This has become my new favorite tool for doing quick jobs, because keeps me from having to drag an extension cord out. And we just heat shrink that on there. For a cordless heat source, pretty impressed with it. All right, there you go. That is a connection that I will never have to worry about. So I'm going to go ahead and put the loom back on. I'm actually going to cut it off and put a longer piece on so it goes all the way up to the end. But get that buttoned up. Don't forget to put your zip ties back in. Put those in last in case that track has to be adjusted left or right. So you don't want the zip tie to bind up what you're doing. And I think I had one down here as well, going through this little hole right here. But anyway, get all that buttoned up. I've got the new latch that's going to go in. It's going to fish it back in there and snap it onto this little connector right here. And we're going to call this one done. Now, I know this video is probably going to get crazy long, but I think I'm going to wait to wrap it up until I get my door panels back from the upholstery shop, so we can actually see what the finished product looks like. So we'll catch up then. Just a quick update on the door panel part of this project. This is the driver's side front door panel, and I got it out of there and I started peeling off all the material. It's the same as this. It just continues down. It's all glued on. And the lower half of this thing was absolutely destroyed. I mean, it's cracked here. It's cracked across the middle right here. It's cracked here. It's got cracks right here. The bottoms were blown out. This corner here was blown out, and up where the strap goes, the limit strap that keeps your door from opening too far, every one of mine were destroyed. And this one was the absolute worst. So there's no way I'm going to be able to use this and make it work. It's just junk. There's no way the upholstery shop can get in there and cover it up. Now, all the other ones they weren't that bad. They had a couple of cracks here, but every single one of them had the strap area blown out, because when you bolt that bracket down, it kind of wants to flex these back a little bit. So this was completely destroyed once you start peeling this material off. The material was the only thing holding the plastic together. So I found this soft, translucent kind of plastic, and I machined it out to where it overlaps. I cut half of the plastic, the panel, and half of this insert away, so there's kind of like an overlap. And I used stainless steel wire and just kind of stitched it in here, because I really can't glue this to this. And I want to be able to see it because I need to be able to transfer the holes through it. But anyway, I think that's going to work. This is all going to get covered with foam. This is still all going to get peeled off. I had a crack on this side, and I went ahead and I glued a patch across the back here. It's real thin ABS plastic, and that one stiffened that up quite a bit. So yeah, these things are just, they're hard to find. I found one of the rear ones for $1,500. I found the other side for $500, and then the driver's one that doesn't even exist anymore. So what I did is I cut this off, and I set this up, and I machined half the thickness of the door panel away, so it's got a step in there. And then I went down, I got some ABS plastic sheet, basically the same stuff, and I cut halfway down, basically just like a rabbit on the edge of it. So I cut halfway down through the thickness of that. Then that is going to get bonded. There's a 5/8 overlap there. So that is going to get bonded right there. And it's going to basically give me a whole new panel down here. I still need to cut these corners off and radius them. But I got this milled out for the door handle and this for the switch pod. But anyway, so this is going to get glued on here, and then I got something to cover, and this thing here was it's just too far gone. I mean, it's junk. And I wish somebody had made like new skins for these that you could reupholster yourself, but there's $1 million idea right there. But anyway, that's where I'm at with this thing. We'll look at it again once I get this one all glued together and buttoned up, and then I'm going to test fit it, and I got to drill the holes in for the screws. And notice the pockets are gone. Very nice. So this up here is in great shape. I mean, this one even had a crack down the ridge right here on the back side. But if you know, MEK is perfect for gluing ABS together. It literally just melts it back together, and that's what I'm going to use right here. I'm just going to put some MEK in a syringe, squirt both sides, get it nice and wet, press this down, weight it, clamp it, and it should be as good as one piece. And that black leather will come right up here and match up to this existing material. Just want to show you guys what this repaired panel looks like. It's a good idea to test fit everything before you send it to upholstery. So I got the holes transferred through for the screws. Of course, these will eventually be black. These are the new Predator billet handles with the leather tops. These things are fantastic, man. They look really nice. And then up front here, there's a little indentation in the door where this limit strap goes, and I just heated it up with a heat gun and pulled it back, so that way it's not forcing that panel to go around the corner. But once that's all covered and, with upholstery or with leather and foam, that's going to blend right in. But anyway, I'll show you what the backside looks like. And it went together really well. I was surprised with it, and it is super strong. So let me pop it off, and I'll show you that in a second. This is the back of the panel. You can see it went down real nice. It's perfectly flush all the way across. And I had a bunch of cracks in here, along here. Had cracks up through here. I had cracks up through here. And if you just take some MEK and put in a little syringe and just fill that crack and push it back together and hold it for a few seconds, that stuff will bond back together like it was one piece. So you can't really see the overlap here. I mean, there's a 5/8 overlap from here back to here. So I milled out both sides halfway down, and then I got a nice rigid glue bond there, and that's going to work out fantastic. Now for the ones that I just had to repair the one corner, kind of see what that looks like. So this is my my handy, this is about all I know about sewing, but this is stainless steel wire, and this is a really soft plastic in here, so it's going to form to that door just right. So once that gets covered with foam, you'll never see it. It'll be strong for a long time. But there's an indentation right here on all these doors. If you look at the back one too, you can see how it kind of recesses. It kind of goes in right there. And I wonder if that's just from years and years of pulling on that door is causing that to buckle. I'm always wondering if that should have been straight, because at an angle, when this goes in, this wants to crash. It wants to crash into this pillar right here, and I'm wondering if it should have been out more. But so I don't know if that's that was designed like that, or over years of just pulling on it, that door just got weak and just moved on its own. But they're all about the same, so I'm thinking it's supposed to be that way. Okay, we are finally at the end of this video. So we've got the door panels going back in. Sonny's Upholstery over in Tempe did a really nice job of putting that leather in. And these are the billet machined Predator door handles with the padded leather top on them. So finishes that off real nice. No more kangaroo pouches. I don't think anybody really wants those anymore. And back doors, same way, it looks great. Now these handles right here, these are actually made for one of the newer Ford Broncos. Found it online, looking for different things, and I needed this indentation right here to go around this bolster on this Corbeau seat. The factory strap that was here was putting a dent in the side of the bolster, and I didn't want that because over time it would just be a permanent dent in the side of that seat. So that back finishes up the back door real nice. Over here on the other side, front door, same way. I'll put it back together. Looks great. Now on almost all my door panels, I had to add a screw right here in the center, because over time these things here will bow out like crazy and it looks bad. So just adding one screw there. Even added one down here in the middle and the bottom, because there's nothing along the bottom of the door to keep that door panel tight against the frame. So that finishes up that door real nice. Now on the back door, before I put the panel on, I want to show you guys a couple things. So these are the brand new tracks that went in on the front, and this is the rear door here. Well, that glass, you know, it's a tight fit in there, and that glass doesn't want to move super easy. So what I found was WD-40 makes a silicone dry lube. This is not oil. It's a dry lubricant. So put it on a Q-tip or a cotton ball or something and just wipe it inside this track before you install it. You could even do this to the old ones as well. But let it dry about 30 minutes and you'll get a nice silicone coat in there, making it slippery for that glass to go up and down. Way better than that white lithium grease somebody slathered on there before I got a hold of the truck. Now also, if you're putting these regulators in, down here in the bottom where this bottom mounting flange is, on the inside of your door there's an extra piece of flashing right here. And it kind of continues, you can barely see it down in there, but it continues to the other side of this piece right here. Now, when you put this in, this thing's going to have a tendency to want to bolt to the back side of that inner piece. You don't want to do that because when you tighten the screw up, it's just going to collapse and crush everything in there. So you want to make sure you wiggle it up and over and down, and you get this piece flat against the back of the door here, and then it goes together really nice. So it's a little, I found it by accident, and I actually had to go back and change one of mine. But yeah, make sure you get that in correctly. And then the yellow and red wire, I just soldered under the yellow red wire in the harness thinking everything was good, but when I actually tried the switches up front, I come to find out it was backwards. And it was just on my back doors, not the front ones. The front ones went in correctly. So I didn't want to take the heat shrink and the solder off, so I just pushed the pins out of the connector and just flipped them around and snapped them back in. Fixed that problem pretty quick. And also earlier in the video, I was talking about how these doors right here were completely caved in and buckled over. I thought it was supposed to be that way because all four doors look the same. So after some research, I come to find out that this is supposed to be flat. So I bolted a bar to the screw, the fitting inside here, and then I just used a bar to kind of bend this aluminum back out and get it as flat as I could. And then I cut some plates out of some tempered stainless, and I screwed them in top and bottom, and then drilled a hole in the center, and that makes this whole area right here a lot stiffer. And even when you open it up, the door stops solid. It doesn't have that marshmallow feel anymore. So yeah, they're supposed to be flat. They're not supposed to be caved in. And I spent a lot of time putting that soft, flexible plastic on the inside of my door panels, thinking it was going to have to flex into that area. But turns out I didn't need that. So I ended up taking all that stuff back out and just putting some ABS filler pieces in there where the white plastic was. And MEK, some methyl ketone, we glued that stuff back in there real nice, got the hole through, and so this is all buttoned up. This one's ready to go in. I changed these out to the machine screw type because the little keepers that are in there from the factory, they fall out over time. So that buttons that up. So that's about it for all the doors. All the carnage is over here. And 4 pieces of glass, tracks, the 2 window tracks I replaced, window regulators. I actually already sold one on eBay, so I will slowly get rid of those. And I even replaced all my paddle handles on the interior because those are starting to look a little crusty. So all in all these parts plus the upholstery over at Sunny's ran about $5,200. Kind of an investment, but I know now that all my doors are buttoned up. And I've got that real nice factory glass in there, and no more tint scratching or peeling off. And yeah, it just came out really nice. So that's it for summertime. It's the first week of July. You'll notice my door is closed, and thank goodness for that little guy right there because it's a frosty 74 degrees inside. I think it's about 116 outside right now. So this is my last job for summer. In the fall, I'm going to give you guys a spoiler alert. That is my next job. So I would call those a barn find. I found a guy about halfway across the state that had these for sale, brand new in the box. These are 273 axles. Now in this 2000 H1, I have the 256 axles, which are the ABS axles. So they were good for like 3 years. And if you have ABS, you cannot change the gear ratio because the tone ring will not communicate with the transmission and you'll get an ABS error. But since I did an ABS delete, I can put any axle I want in this thing. So 273 is going to give me a little bit more bottom end, and it's not going to affect the top end because I've got the Allison 6-speed in. So I think those are going to go in real nice. And also getting fitted are the ARB air lockers. So these are the kits made for those axles, and I am not installing these because if I put them in myself, I will not get a warranty. So I'm going to take these out to Predator, and they fill out a form, you know, denoting all of the backlash, the shimming, the preloads on all the bearings, and that way I can file that with my warranty, and I won't have to worry about it. And I'm also putting in these Anvil heavy-duty axle mounting plates. Anvil Motorsports, they're hard to find on the web, but they make some really cool stuff for the H1s. And these are the exact same ones that Mod Mafia makes for about half the price. And they are really nice powder coat finish. And they even burn in the little front and the rear into the plate so you get them in the right spot. So that will be this fall, and I'm looking forward to getting that done. And that's about it for this video. Hope you guys got some information out of this. And this was long. The video was long, the job was long, and I am glad it's over. So you guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.